In 1979, a couple of police cars arrived to inspect a gruesome crime scene in the middle of nowhere and find a dead body on the road. Things only get worse when they enter the cabin and find tons of dead bodies lying around. We can see a traditional evangelist preaching his lessons on TV while the sheriff and his men explore the murder house. They eventually go down the basement and come across a horrifying sight that makes them sick to their stomach. Now we are taken to a flashback where we see an adult actress, Maxine Minks, giving herself some motivation, after which her boyfriend and executive producer, Wayne Gilroy, drops by. He gets cozy with his girlfriend and tells her she's special, after which the rest of their crew sets out to work. We meet Maxine's fellow performers, Bobby Lynn and Jackson Hole, who are accompanied by camera girl Lorraine and her director boyfriend, RJ Nichols. The crew seems to be on their way to a shooting location for a movie called The Farmer's Daughter. As they make their stop at a store, Maxine tells Wayne that she wants to be famous because she will not accept a life that she does not deserve. She also isn't too fond of Lorraine, who seems to be very judgmental of her co-workers. RJ begins his work on the camera and records Jackson filling the fuel, during which he also tries to act like a pretentious artist. However, he is put in his place when Bobby shows him a much more enticing way to shoot Jackson. The crew stocks up on supplies and continues on their journey, but come across some roadkill on the way, and it makes Maxine a little sick. After some time, they finally reach their destination, which is the same cabin for the beginning of the movie. Wayne goes to handle business while Lorraine has an argument with RJ over the nature of their work. The producer meets with the landowner, Howard, but is confronted with a shotgun at first. Maxine notices this and tensions run high amongst the crew, but then Wayne is able to remind Howard that they had spoken earlier over the phone. As the team unloads their equipment, Maxine notices an old lady named Pearl, who happens to be Howard's wife. The crew has a few awkward interactions with the old man, but Wayne manages to get a sweet bargain, even though Howard explicitly states that he doesn't like any of his tenants. After the grumpy grandpa leaves, Lorraine expresses concern over their landlord not knowing what they're doing here. However, Wayne simply calls her a church mouse and says it's better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. It's showtime and the actors get to work while Maxine goes out for a stroll. She reaches the lake and decides to go skinny dipping, while Pearl creepily spies on her from the background. Meanwhile, Wayne and RJ celebrate a successful shoot as they believe they have something new that will blow everyone's minds. Maxine doesn't realize that there's an alligator in the water, but manages to get out before it's too late. She spots Pearl on her way back inside and enters her house after the old lady waves to her in a friendly manner. A creepy sequence follows as Maxine searches for Pearl inside the cabin. At the same time, the crew starts shooting the story part of their movie with Jackson and Bobby. Maxine finally meets Pearl and is offered some lemonade, so she reluctantly accepts it. The old lady seems to be jealous of Maxine and her team, as they are still young and passionate. She shows Maxine some of her younger pictures and reminisces about the time when she can also do wild things. That's when Pearl gets creepy with her fantasy girl, but then Howard comes back in his truck, so Maxine has to run away. She avoids bumping into the grumpy husband and is reunited with Wayne, who asks her to calm down. The lead actress needs to reassure herself before she heads out for her performance, and then the crew begins shooting the main scene for The Farmer's Daughter. Then we see Pearl slowly dressing herself up, after which she goes into the cabin and sneaks in on the crew shooting their movie. She gets excited as sees herself in Maxine, and then she comes back home to Howard. Hoping to feel young again, Pearl tries to get romantic with her husband, but he refuses to entertain her because he has a very weak heart. Now the team sits down for a meal and discusses the importance of their industry, especially with the emergence of home video entertainment. Maxine engages with Lorraine after she stares at her, but Wayne tries to ease the tension. After this, Bobby and Jackson join in to help Lorraine understand the difference between real life and real life. The camera girl becomes a little more receptive, after which everyone engages in a song. However, to their surprise, Lorraine asks to be a part of the film. RJ is completely against this and gets into an argument with his girlfriend because he doesn't want to shoot her doing a scene with Jackson. Wayne decides to take the director outside to have a discussion, But RJ is completely furious with the way Lorraine is behaving. Despite his reservations, Wayne says that there is no nice girls in the world, so he has to do as he is told. The director boyfriend has no other option but to watch his girlfriend get steamy with Jackson while directing them at the same time. He loses his mind in the shower and decides to leave the set, but runs into Pearl on the way. She is strangely dressed up, so RJ tries to help her, but she kisses him instead. The director resists the creepy granny and suggests going back to her husband, but that's when Pearl stabs RJ and goes psycho mode on him. A grueling sequence follows, after which Pearl seemingly celebrates killing RJ by dancing next to his body, soaked in the red light. Later, Lorraine wakes up, but doesn't find RJ next to her, so she goes looking for him. The director is nowhere to be found, so Lorraine worries that he has left her because of the scene. She checks outside but is frightened by Wayne, who tries to reassure her that RJ hasn't left because the car is still here. However, Lorraine insists that he should help her find RJ, so Wayne reluctantly agrees to it. He goes to the cowshed while Lorraine bumps into Howard and asks him if he's seen her boyfriend. Surprisingly, he asks her if she's seen his wife, and then Wayne steps on a nail as he walks through the shed. He calls out to RJ for help, but gets his eyes impaled when he checks out a peephole. Meanwhile, Howard asks Lorraine to go to the basement to turn on the power to the house. The crazy witch is shown to be Wayne's murderer as well, and she checks out her latest victim with a sense of pride. Now, Lorraine gets to the lights, but is locked inside the basement, and then she comes across her boyfriend's body in horrifying fashion. She lets out a giant scream which alerts Jackson in the middle of his sleep. Now that he's woken up, the hunk goes downstairs to drink some milk, but then he spots someone suspicious. It turns out to be Howard, who asks him for help as he cannot locate Pearl. Jackson gets dressed and heads out, but then we see Pearl creepily sneaking up on Maxine, who is fast asleep in bed. As Jackson and Howard check out the lake, Pearl spreads blood all over Maxine's body. Now, Jackson finds a car sinking in the lake, after which he notices Howard's torch by the water. Fearing the worst, he frantically looks for him, but then he bumps into the jealous husband. Howard confronts Jackson and accuses him of trying to seduce his wife. The hunk finds these accusations ridiculous, but Howard shoots him as he is jealous of his youth. Then, Maxine wakes up next to Pearl and lets out a giant scream, so Bobby rushes to comfort her. Meanwhile, Lorraine tries to find her way out of the basement, so she uses an axe to break out of confinement. However, Howard attacks her with a hammer and threatens the camera girl to stay inside. Meanwhile, Bobby finds Pearl by the lake and offers some support, but gets slapped, so they get into an argument. In a brutal sequence, Pearl throws Bobby into the lake, after which he is killed and eaten by an alligator. Now, Maxine tries looking for her friends, but finds the creepy old couple coming back from their murder hall, so she hides under their bed. Howard and Pearl proudly discuss the people they've killed, after which the old witch convinces her husband to get intimate, despite his heart condition. Unfortunately for Maxine, she has to listen to their gruesome scene, and it becomes too much for her, so she decides to get away from the horrifying experience. The actress rushes to RJ's car to make her escape, but the tires have been punctured, so Maxine takes the gun from the dashboard. Then, she goes back to the house in order to get the keys to the old couple's truck. During her search, Maxine manages to find Lorraine, so she sets her free. However, the camera girl goes crazy and blames Maxine for bringing her into this before she tries to leave. Unfortunately, Howard kills Lorraine, and the couple tries to drag the body back inside. Suddenly, the camera girl lets out one last breath, and it gives Howard a heart attack, thus killing him in the process. Pearl tries to revive her dead husband, and Maxine takes this chance to point her gun at the old witch. However, the weapon isn't loaded, and in an even funnier twist, Pearl is blown away by the recoil when she fires Howard's shotgun. Maxine believes this to be divine intervention, and takes the truck's keys after she walks away from Pearl, who hurls some insults. The star actress decides to end the villain's misery by running the truck over her head, and then she makes her escape. Back to the present. The sheriff and his deputy make their way out of the cabin, and then we learn that the evangelist in the television is actually Maxine's father. The cops find RJ's video camera, and the sheriff laments that it might contain a messed up horror picture. And that's the end of the movie. Like, share, and subscribe for more spooky recaps. Hit the bell icon for regular notifications. I'll see you in the next one.